Sometimes life strips a man of everything before revealing what truly matters. For Eli Turner, the fall began with a midnight phone call and a patch of black ice that ended his wife's life. Within months, grief hollowed him, his job vanished, and foreclosure pried away the home he and Sarah had built for their 7-year-old son Milo. Pride kept him from crashing on friends' couches, and desperation drove him into the mountains when a lawyer's letter arrived. His estranged mother Eleanor had left him a cabin. What waited for him and Milo was no haven, but a rotting husk of wood in the forest, with broken windows, sagging beams, and strange spiral carvings that sent chills down his spine. Yet Milo, with his teddy bear clutched tight, smiled through fatigue and whispered it looked like a fairy tale house. Eli wanted to believe him, but the cabin felt alive with a silence too heavy to be natural. That first night, under a loose floorboard, Milo found a music box carved with the same haunting symbols. When it played its lullaby, the air froze, whispers rose from the walls, and footsteps echoed from a roof where no one stood. Eli's instinct screamed to flee, but some part of him recognized that not all voices in the dark come to harm. Some are there to heal. The days that followed were a blur of survival. Eli forced electricity back into the old wiring, coaxed water from the hand pump, and patched what he could with trembling hands. Yet the cabin revealed its secrets with unnerving precision, as though Eleanor had expected their arrival. A child's bed already made, carved toys lined neatly on a nightstand, shelves stacked with books on medicine, psychology, and herbs. Each discovery unsettled Eli, yet Milo found comfort bouncing on the mattress, asking if Grandma Eleanor had known he was coming. Eli could only answer with silence. That night when the music box's song returned, so did the whispers, rising like a tide of unseen presences. Eli snapped it shut, but the echoes lingered, reminding him that the cabin was more than shelter. When dawn came, Milo was fevered, cheeks burning, breath shallow. Panic clawed at Eli, no hospitals for miles, no car that could make the mountain drive. As despair took him, a stack of Eleanor's journals fell open at his feet. Inside were remedies, willow bark tea for fever, instructions marked with urgency. Whispers guided him to a hidden stash of herbs. Against reason, Eli brewed the tea and prayed. Hours later, Milo's fever broke. Eli felt the invisible hand of his mother guiding him, teaching him, protecting the grandson she'd never met. From that moment, the cabin ceased being just a relic of abandonment. Eli uncovered journals, letters, and artifacts that painted Eleanor not as the negligent mother he despised, but as a secret guardian. She had been a nurse, yes, but more than that. A midwife to the forgotten, delivering babies for undocumented women, runaway teenagers, battered wives, those society pushed aside. Hidden compartments yielded dozens of birth certificates, letters of gratitude, and even carved dolls meant to ward off fear. 63 children, their names etched in her records, their lives given legitimacy through her sacrifice. One letter from a grown woman revealed she had taken Eleanor's last name because Eleanor was the first person who made her feel she deserved to exist. Each page Eli read shattered his anger and rebuilt his mother's image. She hadn't abandoned him from selfishness. She had traded her own family to protect dozens more. And when Milo, cradling a doll Eleanor had carved decades earlier, whispered that Grandma had sung him the music box's song in his dreams, Eli felt an unfamiliar peace. Perhaps her spirit lingered not to haunt, but to ensure her son finally understood who she truly was. The revelations deepened when a neighbor appeared. Martha Hendris, an elderly woman from 2 miles east, brought tools Eleanor had left behind and stories Eli never knew. She revealed Eleanor's secret network: safe houses for abused women, tunnels under the cabin for escapes, maps marked with symbols of sanctuary. This was no mere cabin. It was the hub of an underground railroad of compassion. Hidden passages beneath the floor revealed shelters stocked with food, clothing, and toys. Names carved into beams testified to lives saved. Jenny and baby safe. Rosa found good family. Eleanor had built an invisible fortress against a world that preyed on the weak. Yet Eli also found warnings, files documenting not just births but threats, organized predators who targeted children from families too afraid to seek help. His mother had been more than a healer. She'd been a soldier in a silent war. As Eli pieced it together, Martha admitted the hospitals wouldn't treat the vulnerable Eleanor served. So Eleanor became their only line of defense. Eli's grief turned to awe, his resentment to reverence. His mother had carried burdens heavier than he ever imagined. But the cabin's whispers turned urgent. One night, Eli discovered blackmail letters hidden in Eleanor's rocking chair. They revealed a predator who had tried to coerce her into handing over vulnerable children, threatening exposure of the mother's secrets if she refused. The final letter promised consequences if she kept interfering. Eli's blood ran cold as the handwriting matched a recent note given to him by Deputy Tom Bradley, the very man who had come asking for Eleanor's files. The realization hit with crushing force. The local deputy, the one who claimed to fight for missing children, was the predator Eleanor had died trying to expose. He had used his badge to infiltrate her network, twisting compassion into a hunting ground. The supernatural presence in the cabin erupted, doors slammed, windows rattled, as if Eleanor's spirit demanded Eli act. Milo, eyes distant as though listening to another world, whispered that Grandma said Bradley was moving the children that very night, hiding them in tunnels of an abandoned mining camp. Eli knew then this was no haunting. It was a call to arms. The predator had been unmasked, but rescuing the children meant stepping fully into Eleanor's legacy. With Martha at his side and Milo guided by dreams, Eli prepared for war. He armed himself with Eleanor's old rifle, packed her medical bag, and loaded the truck she'd left behind. The journey through dark mountain roads felt like a march into destiny. At the abandoned mine, Eleanor's hand-drawn maps proved true, tunnels twisted beneath the earth, chambers where Bradley had hidden the stolen children. The confrontation was raw and terrifying. Bradley, mask torn away, sneered at Eli with the arrogance of a man who had hidden in plain sight for years. Yet Eli, driven by his mother's spirit and his son's trust, stood firm. The mine became chaos, whispers swelling, lights flickering as though Eleanor herself had joined the fight. In the end, Bradley's reign collapsed beneath the weight of exposure and the courage of those he thought powerless. The children were freed, his crimes laid bare, and Eleanor's spirit seemed to exhale a sigh that echoed through the tunnels. Eli had not only inherited her mission, he had avenged her. When dawn broke, the cabin no longer felt haunted. It felt consecrated. Milo, clutching the carved doll, told his father that Grandma said she could rest now, but she'd always be watching. Eli believed him. The evidence Eleanor had left, records, maps, testimonies, ensured Bradley's crimes could never be buried. More importantly, Eli realized that his mother's legacy was not a burden to mourn but a calling to continue. As Martha reminded him, Eleanor hadn't worked alone. She'd built a network, and now Eli was part of it. The cabin became more than shelter. It became headquarters for a new chapter of protection, healing, and resistance. Eli, once a broken man drowning in loss, was now reborn in his mother's fire. He wasn't just Sarah's widower or Milo's father. He was Eleanor's son, the torchbearer of a legacy carved into wood, stone, and whispers. So when people tell the story of Eli Turner and the haunted cabin in the Colorado mountains, they don't tell it as a tale of fear. They tell it as a story of redemption, of a father and son who stepped into the shadow of a woman the world never saw clearly until it was almost too late. They tell of the music box that whispered not threats, but hope, of tunnels that weren't escapes, but lifelines, of a man who lost everything, only to discover that what he'd inherited was far greater than a home. And if you're listening now, maybe that's what you're meant to take with you too. That sometimes the voices calling from the dark aren't there to scare you. They're there to guide you. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs to believe in unseen guardians, and join us tomorrow for another tale where hope hides in unexpected places. Because stories like these aren't just to be heard, they're to be carried forward.